So good, so good, so good.
New markdowns up to 70% off are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. And that means so many new reasons to rack.
Because I always find something amazing.
Just so many good brands.
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
TaxAct can think of a million things more fun than filing taxes. TaxAct is going to name some now. Sitting in traffic. Folding a fitted bedsheet. Listening to your coworker talk about his fantasy team. Digging a hole. Digging an even larger hole next to that original hole. Unfortunately, TaxAct's filing software can't make taxes fun. But TaxAct can help you get them done. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
Welcome back to Marvelous Disney, the podcast where Dan Graney and I talk about Marvel, Disney, theme parks, movies, and how it all fits together, whether the company admits it or not. I am entertainment writer Jim Hill, and I'm joined, as always, by the dazzling, dynamic, very handsome in person, Dan Graney. By the way, we are recording this on Sunday, April 12th, and Dan, just going to say this up front, it feels like Marvel dropped a lot of ingredients on the table this week, whether they meant to or not, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right. I don't know if they meant to, but if you kind of just take a step back from the table and you just look at everything together, it does. To me, at least, it starts to make a recipe that seems pretty tasty.
All right, but again, this is street level stuff that we're talking about here, because that's where Marvel seems to be spending a lot of time right now. But before we take it to the streets, let's talk about the folks that keep this show going, and that, of course, is unlockmagic.com, where you get real discounts on Walt Disney World and Universal Orlando tickets, sometimes upwards of 12% off. And just so you know, Unlock Magic is run by the exact same team behind the DVC rental store and the DVC resale market. And so just pick your dates, grab your tickets, and go. Unlock Magic makes it that easy to rack up some pretty significant savings. Oh, and when you get your ticket, tell the nice folks at unlockmagic.com that it was Dan and it was Jim who nudged you along. So, all right, anyway, so we are now officially halfway through season 2 of Daredevil Born Again, and episode 4, kind of a turning point. I mean, holy cow.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, and without getting too deep into spoilers right away, as for anyone who may be not caught up yet, this is where the show really clearly is committing to what it is. And if you don't want to know specifically, you might want to skip ahead a couple minutes or so, and we'll give a second. Still there? Okay. So I suspect we're about to see what an unhinged Kingpin looks like. I mean, he's never technically been hinged, but the doors feel like they're about to blow off if what we saw at the end of this episode comes to pass.
Oh, yeah, there is a lot to unpack with episode 4, and okay, we're just going to jump in with both feet with the spoilers here. So, is Vanessa dead? I mean, this is the second time we've seen Matt jump in between Bullseye and Kingpin, right?
Yeah. Although this one I don't think is going to earn him any points with Fisk.
Oh, God, no, not at all. I mean, if anything, I see just escalation coming on the heels of the end of this episode.
Well, like I said, this was a turning point. And, we've talked before about Marvel maybe shifting tone. Clearly, this isn't theoretical anymore. It feels like it's happening.
Yeah, and we're also seeing new characters come into play, like Angela de Toro stepping into the White Tiger role.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I think that's huge because now you've got these legacy characters building out that street level world in a way that actually feels organic. It's not just dropped in for a cameo.
Oh, no. I mean, when you think about the role she played in The Breakout from Red Hook in episode 3, and then, layered in on top of that, you got The Punisher coming into the mix with that upcoming special, and you did see the teaser, right?
Oh, yeah. One Last Kill. And it was very brief. But what's interesting is it doesn't feel isolated.
No, not at all. And I have to admit, just past week, I tripped over the story about how John Bernthal, the gentleman who plays the Punisher, he supposedly walked away from season 1 of Daredevil Born Again because he wasn't happy with the original direction, the story that was being told in that limited series. And evidently John only came back to Daredevil Born Again after it paused production back in June of 2023. And they'd been shooting since February, but it was only after it rebooted that, he agreed to come back. And so now the thing that Dan just sort of alluded to, the Punisher One Last Kill, the pedigree here fascinates me. All right, it's actually written by Bernthal, the star of the show, along with Ronaldo Marcus Green, and Green, by the way, is also directing the episode, so that this sounds like a two-hander. And it filmed last July, and this is the thing that absolutely fascinates me, Dan. The version of the Punisher character that we're supposed to see in One Last Kill is also supposedly the exact same one we're going to get in Spider-Man Brand New Day. And in fact, I think you on an earlier show alluded to that fact that, the Punisher that we see in the new Spider-Man movie is the one who's going to be in the special.
Yeah, I mean, I think that also explains why they just dropped a little bit of a teaser for this special at the end of the teaser for the rest of the Daredevil season, just to make it feel like there's a lot of connective tissue here. And they're not just telling a Daredevil story, they're building a whole lane. Because if you look at all of this together, we've got Daredevil, we've got Punisher, what's happening in New York, it all is beginning to feel like Marvel is rebuilding something from the ground up.
And then there's that rumor you spotted.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, and we should say clearly this is a rumor, but there was some chatter that Marvel could be developing a Daredevil movie. And this potentially could be something that is at the end of the current series. So we know that they're filming season 3 of Daredevil right now. So this, unless they get a season 4 greenlit, this would be like the finale for that. But this also, the rumor says, could potentially bring in Spider-Man.
Which, based on what we're seeing right now, wouldn't really be all that surprising.
No, not at all. Okay, so the street level side of the MCU is getting more connected by the minute, and we're seeing it everywhere with all of these things overlapping each other. It's just starting to feel like its own corner of the universe again.
Which, honestly, might be exactly what Marvel needs right now. I find it interesting to watch how at the start of each new episode of Daredevil Born Again that you give it a QRL code, which then, takes you to a free Marvel comic book that supposedly serves, a specific story that served as the inspiration for this particular episode of this limited series. And by the way, side note, we were just talking about Spider-Man Brand New Day, but there's a lot of folks who, when they looked at the trailer for that, couldn't help but notice that, there are images in this trailer that are almost spot on recreations of classic covers from Spider-Man, specific Spider-Man comics, so once again, we're circling back on that, that source material. And also, the other thing that, again, I'm trying to read the tea leaves here, but the fact that as part of the opening of each new episode of season 2 of Daredevil Born Again, viewers are being told that, by the way, go check out the official Daredevil podcast. So for me, when I look at the comic book QRL code and this, go see the podcast, it just seems to me that Disney Plus is trying to make the Daredevil viewing experiences as sticky as possible, win over as many, viewers as possible, which, by the way, would be a perfect time to discuss who's still in play. But before we do that, we got this.
K-pop Demon Hunters Saga Boys breakfast meal and Huntrix meal have just dropped at McDonald's. They're calling this a battle for the fans. What do you say to that, Rumi?
It's not a battle. So glad the Saga Boys could take breakfast and give our meal the rest of the day.
It is an honor to share.
No, it's our honor.
It is our larger honor.
No, really. Stop.
You can really feel the respect in this battle. Pick a meal to pick a side.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's while supplies last.
We all have that dream trip we've been wishing we could go on, but too often life, or usually price, gets in the way. That's why Priceline is here to help you turn your dream trip into reality. With up to 60% off hotels and up to 50% off flights, you can book everything you need for your next adventure. Don't just dream about that next trip. Book it with Priceline. Download the Priceline app or visit Priceline.com and book your next trip today.
Go to your happy price, Priceline.
And we're back. All right, Dan, let's zoom out a little bit. Because the thing about, when you're working, talking about street level world, that's focused, where the bigger picture can still feel, especially when we're talking about Marvel, kind of unsettled right now, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, what's interesting now is we're hearing the data doesn't even match the assumed narrative.
How so?
Okay. So, She-Hulk, attorney at law, because for a long time, the general assumption was that just did not stick the landing.
Well, yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, if a loud contingent from certain corners of the online community is to believe that thing landed with a plop.
Yeah. Okay. Right. But, now we're hearing it was actually one of the better performing shows. So we have a disconnect between what fans think worked and maybe what actually did.
Yeah, and at the same time, we've now got actors like Elizabeth Olsen out there saying things like,
"Oh, she's still Sergeant Schultzing. I know nothing."
Well, which, to be fair, we've heard before.
Oh, yeah. Marvel actors saying they don't know anything is, at this point, it's kind of its own genre. But it does raise an interesting question, is how much of this is secrecy and maybe how much of this is Marvel still kind of figuring things out as they go.
And then when you look at what's happening with the new Avengers.
So I was going to ask about that, because now we're, based on what we're seeing in Daredevil, Born Again, in New York specifically, it doesn't feel like the Avengers are fully in control of anything, at least not in New York City. And we did spot Avengers Tower again, which raises even more questions.
Oh, and Valentina still seems to be pulling the strings behind the scenes. Was that a scene in episode 3 or episode 4? I forget.
I think that was an episode, was 2 or 3. Okay. But yeah, she's still present. So these are clearly all connected. This isn't like the old days when S.H.I.E.L.D. was kind of doing its own thing and kind of had to be in a holding pattern until the Marvel movie hit. This is clearly in tandem. So we've got this team that was positioned as the next big thing, the new Avengers. And it already feels like they're not driving the narrative at all.
Which brings us to the bigger question.
Who is?
Well, it seems to be a somewhat tangled web.
Nice.
Very nice. All right, I have my moments. But let's talk where Spider-Man comes in.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've already talked about where Spider-Man Brand New Day fits, but the question is, what kind of movie is this?
And that's where things get interesting, because we're hearing about reshoots, right?
Yeah, specifically adding more humor, which, depending on how you feel about Marvel's tone lately, I mean, that could go either way.
Because the trailer suggested something a little more grounded.
Oh, yeah, a little more isolated, a little more serious. So when you hear we're adding jokes, you start to wonder, is this refinement or is it course correction?
Or is it Marvel just being Marvel? And at the same time, the speculation is ramping up with something you saw.
That is correct. Also, I do want to mention, I was looking at, okay, so they're doing reshoots in Glasgow, Scotland. And the Avenger reshoots are happening in London. And then I was looking at how far away is Glasgow from London. And you know what? Funny thing, not very far. Anyway, just again, we're talking rumor territory here. But something that I did see was that there's talk that Secret Wars could feature multiple Spider-Men again.
Well, which wouldn't surprise anyone after No Way Home.
Well, that's true. Not at all. But then now, I don't know if you saw this, but Robert Downey Jr. posted that Easter image. Did you happen to see that?
Yeah, with all the logos.
Oh, yeah, that's the one. And people immediately started zooming in on it and picking it apart like it was the Zapruder film.
Oh, yeah. Looking for Spider-Man, looking for Doctor Strange.
Well, they weren't disappointed. There they were. I mean, and whether this means anything or not, I don't know. I mean, Doctor Doom being Doctor Doom, this could just be trolling. But it does reinforce the idea that even when Marvel doesn't say it, everything does sort of always circle back to Spider-Man.
This is true. But there were also some other big moments this past week, which we will talk about. But first, this.
Refreshing wild cherry cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
Right now at the Home Depot, shop Spring Black Friday savings and get up to 40% off, plus up to $500 off select appliances from top brands like Samsung. Get a fridge with 0 clearance hinges, so the doors open fully even in tighter spaces in your kitchen. And laundry that saves you time, like an all-in-one washer-dryer that can run a full load in just 68 minutes. Shop Spring Black Friday savings, plus get free delivery on appliance purchases of $998 or more at the Home Depot. Offer valid April 9th through April 29th, U.S. only. See store online for details.
And we're back. Okay, so again, all of these weird little pieces of the puzzle coming together. But while all of that is happening, there was yet another piece of the puzzle that then came into focus, right?
Oh, yeah. And this part of the episode, I think, is where we realized, this isn't just a bunch of small random updates, because the X-Men news this week didn't feel very small.
Yeah. Now, we're finally getting a clear picture of how Marvel is approaching this, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, we had Kevin Feige confirming direction, and Jake Schreier, who's the director, he's stepping in. And the big takeaway is that they're not trying to redo what's already been done.
Yeah, they're actively looking for a new angle.
And a big part of that, from what I saw, is that they're bringing in writers like Lee Sung-jin of Beef fame and Joanna Kahlo, who's a co-creator of The Bear. I think from that we can glean that this is going to be a character-driven story.
Okay, well, let's be honest. That's what the X-Men needs.
Oh, yeah. X-Men's about relationships and ideology and conflict. It's not just spectacle.
And there's also talk, right, of this being a multi-film plan, or it's a surprise to absolutely no one.
No, not at all. Yeah, I mean, not a surprise, but no, this is not one and done. But it is Marvel laying the foundation for the next era, and it's pretty sizable. And I have to say this. So over the past few weeks, I went back and I rewatched X-Men the animated series recently, and I'm talking about the old Fox animated series. And then I started X-Men 97. And if this movie, if they capture even a fraction of the tone from those, they'll be in great shape.
So if the last era, though, is built on the Avengers,
this next one might belong to the X-Men. Well, after Doomsday. Yeah, well, and Secret Wars. But speaking of wars, I did want to pivot just for a second to Star Wars.
Yeah, well, Dan, you wouldn't be you if you didn't find a way to bring Star Wars into this.
Yes, exactly. So, do you know what April 10th, 1981 is significant for?
I'm guessing that you're going to tell me.
Yes, that is the day that Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, officially became Episode 4, A New Hope. April 10th is the day. This is the day when the original 1977 film was re-released in the theaters and officially retitled. And suddenly, it wasn't just Star Wars anymore, much to the continued dismay of some fans even today.
I have heard this debate for 45 years. Speaking of Star Wars, did you catch Maul, Shadow Lord yet?
Oh, yeah. I watched the first 2 episodes last night. And I turned to my wife and I said, this is a crime show with a Star Wars overlay. And I mean that in the best way.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that, I mean, you watching this show, this could be an 80s TV show set in Miami or a gritty LA setting in the 70s. It's good. And when you consider the incredible and complex series of events pre and post this show, it doesn't require a lot of the audience. And I'm talking specifically about Darth Maul, because unless the last time you saw Darth Maul was him falling into a chasm, split in half towards the end of the Phantom Menace, then you would be very confused. But if looking at it now, I mean, there's a lot before and after and in between. So I don't know. It just made me kind of look back at April 10th and think, 45 years later, look at where things are now. And I mean, for me, it was kind of like, that's kind of like what this moment with Marvel is beginning to feel like as well. So we're watching all these pieces. We got street level stories and Spider-Man and multiverse stuff, and mutants are on the way. And it just all feels like we're right on the edge of finding out what this saga it actually is.
So we're still in the part where it hasn't fully been defined yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So maybe a few years from now.
Yes, we will look back at this stretch and we'll realize, hey, this is where it all really started to take shape. At least this phase or saga.
Okay. Well, there's clearly more to come. Speaking of which, I wanted to touch on some theme park news. By the way, out in Anaheim, construction continues on the expansion of the Avengers campus at Disney's California Adventure. And just so you know, Avengers Infinity Defense, the big mega e-ticket, and likewise Stark Flight Labs are still on track for summer of 2027. And you and the family eyeballed that construction while you were in the park last month, right?
Oh, yeah. We were eating our shawarma and gawking over the fence to look at, well, I mean, it was just a giant grid, but it looks sizable.
And speaking of shawarma, interesting you bring that up, because late summer of 2025, fall of that year, folks at Disneyland, who work the ops side of things are like, well, look, all right, with Avengers Infinity Defense and Stark Lab, we're going to get 3,000 additional people an hour in this corner of the park. And so we're going to need an additional quick service restaurant to handle those crowds. So December of last year, 2025, a construction fence went up around the old Fast Pass distribution center for Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. And this new restaurant is going to run from the corner of Pym's Kitchen to the backmost edge of the Animation Academy. And by the way, we're not just expanding our Avengers campuses in Anaheim. We've also seen some interesting things going on over in France in the theme park that was formerly known as Disney's Walt Disney Studios Park in Paris, which just tail end of last month on March 29th. Did you see where that's officially now been rebranded as Disney Adventure World?
I did, and I was as excited as everybody else at that new name.
Yeah, very generic. All right, anyway, but what's interesting about Disney Adventure World is it now has a nighttime show. In fact, out on Adventure Bay, which is a 7-acre wide body of water that got built next to their new World of Frozen, they have debuted Disney Cascades of Light. And this 15-minute long show involves pyro and drones. And by the way, not just flying drones, Dan. We now have 100 water drones, which, by the way, are technically known as ducks. And this show pays tribute to, Disney's Mulan, Moana, Zootopia, Hercules, Frozen, Encanto, even Finding Nemo. But again, because this park also has an Avengers campus, there's about 5 minutes in the middle that's Avengers themed. In fact, you get the really for real Avengers theme from the movie, but you watch sort of this montage of Stephen Strange becoming Doctor Strange, Tony Stark becomes Iron Man, Steve Rogers becomes Captain America, Peter Parker becomes Spider-Man, Shuri becomes Black Panther. You get the idea. But again, not exactly a surprise that Disney Cascade of Light has a giant Marvel section. Because remember, back in summer of 2023, they had over Disney Studios Park in Paris, they debuted a drone show, the Avengers Power the Night thing. And I guess what's fascinating is that show had 500 drones flying above the park's production courtyard, around the Tower of Terror, whereas Cascade of Light, I mean, it sounds like that show in a budget, they only have 279 drones. But they got 100 ducks.
Well,
so
okay, yeah, you've got your water drones, which I don't even know what they look like. I'm gonna have to go find them.
They're genuinely intriguing. It's kind of a toy motorboat with a headlight on it. Anyway, so we definitely have things moving on the big screen, the small screen, and in the theme parks. And I guess on that note, we will wrap things up for this week on the Marvelous Disney podcast. And Dan, until we get another one of these shows loaded up and online, where can the nice folks find you?
Okay, well, if you want to hop over to YouTube, you can catch out the latest episode of The Hubbubbery. That's HUBBUBBERY, where we break down the original Super Mario Brothers movie, which yes,
my God, I remember going to a theater to see that with Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo.
Yeah, the funny thing about this, Jim, is that as huge of a movie buff and gamer that I am, I intentionally did not see that in a theater because I knew just from the trailers, I'm like, that is terrible. But guess what? I took the hit this many years later, and you can see all about it on the next episode.
I have to ask, do you guys talk about the fact that wasn't it shot in like a cement plant? I mean, it I mean, for me, what's fascinating is when you think about Super Mario Brothers and how colorful a world it was. And you're the production designer, and it's like, I got the perfect venue for this thing. An empty cement plant. It's like, really?
Yeah, they tried to. It's kind of funny because they tried to work around it. It was like the mop. Of course, they introduced the mop, and they have a cement company, and there's a drywall company, and of course, you have Mario and Luigi. They're not just plumbers, Jim. They're handymen, and so they try very hard to weave all of these low cost measures into the story without the audience really catching on to it. But you know what? It didn't work.
No, it didn't. And again, just, I have to say my problem with this movie is I walked into this just remembering the masterful performance that Bob Hoskins did in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. But anyway, that's why you want to listen to the hubbubbery, folks. I mean, the fact that you're willing to take on the original Super Mario Brothers movie, that's God's work, Dan, right there. All right.
Thanks, Jim. It's a commitment. So, okay. Well, what about you, Jim? Where can everybody find you?
Okay. Well, we got some other shows here at Jim Hill Media. We got Disney Dish that I do with Len Testa. We have Fine Tuning that I do with Drew Taylor. We have the Epic Universal podcast that I do with Eric Hersey, a talented gentleman who produces a lot of the shows here at Jim Hill Media. Likewise, we have I Want That Too. That's the Disney Merch podcast I do with Eric's lovely bride, Lauren. Also want to thank Eric Hersey and David Gray for the great job they do when it comes to editing and the overall production of this podcast. Also, got a favor to ask of you folks, if you could please head on over to Apple Podcasts and not just review this show, Marvelous Disney, but hey, put in a nice word for Hubbubbery too. That's a great show too. Now, social media wise, Dan, where can the nice folks find you?
You can find us on Facebook under the Hubbubbery. Also, Twitter, Instagram. You can bug us wherever you find us. We'll be there.
Okay. As for me, you can find me on X and Instagram as Jim Hill Media, and then over on Facebook as Jim Hill Media News. And with that, folks, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Marvelous Disney Podcast. Want to thank you for listening, and Mr. Graney and I will be back soon.